so are there any companies for whom the Dutch auction is not appropriate? It's a good question whether it's appropriate for Google. It's a good question whether it even applies to stock. It was invented for tulips, right? So with tulips, there's a finite quantity, and you know you're going to resell them, right? I mean, it's for the wholesale market. And so that's sort of a clever way to deal with the problem of what's the market value. With stock, it's constantly turned over. It's not clear that stock is ever consumed. It's a much more speculative thing. People are going to resell it and resell it and resell it. So I don't know if the Dutch auction method really is appropriate at all. I mean, I'm sort of agnostic. I wonder because of the possibility for speculation. People can put in crazy bids. And another big piece of the Google offering is how is it allocated. So let's assume that you price a little bit below the clearing price, so not everybody gets 100% of what they want. And Google said we're going to try to give everybody 80% of what they want. Well, as soon as you know that it might be allocated, then you bid for more shares than you really want, and then you're not really having an accurate price discovery. And that's what used to happen with old IPOs, priced the conventional way. So that's what the Dutch auction is designed to solve. It's a really good question. Our firm's been working on a small IPO that was going to be Dutch auctioned, and it didn't close. It was pulled last week because it didn't close. It was just the expectations of the market and the auction didn't match. I also have a direct experience with a venture capital Dutch auction, which really gives me pause. I have a private company that wasn't able to go public. It tried 3 times, and ultimately got funding from its existing investors under what you would consider some pretty tough terms. I mean, for those of you who know what this means, 12x liquidation preference is very, very tough terms, and 200% warrant coverage, if you know what that means. But it's just not what you'd get from a friendly venture capitalist on Sand Hill Road if you were starting out. But if you're a company that has missed its plan, then those are kind of the terms of the market. So we're trying to raise, call it $10 million. We only raised 7.5. So the company came up with a bright idea. Let's Dutch auction off the 2.5 that we didn't sell. Let's just ratchet down the price until we clear the market. And the way we were ratcheting down the price was with increasing warrant coverage to effectively lower the price. And we had a minimum. We had to sell at least 1 million of it. Astonishingly, the sophisticated, and we had 300 shareholders, so we sent this information statement out to 300 shareholders. A lot of legal work for a relatively small amount of money to raise. Lots of little people subscribed. Former employees, people that acquired companies and so on, had very tiny shares and stakes in the company. The big investors didn't invest, didn't bid. The auction didn't close, and now we're negotiating with the big investors again. So I'm a little bit afraid that in the IPO context, the institutional investors won't bid. They'll wait and see what it settles out at in the aftermarket. That's the question. Does it work for? In theory, it might work for a small consumer audience. Does it work for institutional investors? We don't know. I mean, no one really knows. There have only been, maybe a dozen Dutch auction IPOs. Some of them have worked. Some of them have gone up. Some of them have gone down. They're not all that different from conventionally priced IPOs. The data, there's not enough data to really know. I'm not close to it, but I would assume there's still going to be a roadshow. And in the typical Dutch auction IPO, you still do a roadshow. You still go around, call on the same investors. It's just the process of placing orders is different. I suppose you could skip a roadshow in the extreme, especially a well-publicized offering, but I think investors still want to meet the officers of the company face-to-face, and they're not only their public roadshow sessions, but they're also one-on-one sessions with the big institutional investors. So I think you'll still see roadshows.